Welcome back to the third part of One Man's Faith today, where Colossians says that women, you're to love your husbands, and husbands, women, you're to live with your husbands and obey them. Men, you are to love your wives. Now, and what I'm trying to look at are the differences between the men and women. Let me say too, women, my definition of submission, just so you know, this is what submission is. Submission, women, are you bowing over so God can smack the husband. That's what submission is about. Get out of the way and let God deal with him. You can't. It's hard for a woman to deal with her husband. God has to do it, but you've got to get out of the way, give him to God, and let God work on him. That's what's got to happen. It doesn't matter how much prayer and fasting, as I said earlier, you put into this. You're not going to change him. Only God can. And men, you listen to me. Being in leadership in the home is not because you are Lord, and you are not to dominate your wife. Leadership in the home by the man is through love. Hear me. Leadership is through love, not domination or lordship. And if you are doing that, if you're trying to control your wife, if you're trying to put her under you to say, you've got to obey me, then you are totally wrong and living in sin. And you need to repent. We've got to understand. Ephesians says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Matter of fact, let's look at that. Let's go over to Ephesians chapter 6. I want you to see this, guys. Chapter 5, excuse me. Chapter 5, verse 25. Husbands, love, that's the word agape, love your wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify her, set her apart, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle. Men, our position in the family and in our marriage is to love as Jesus loved the church. And how did he love the church? He gave himself up for her. Love is giving. It's not a feeling. This is part of the problem. We get into what we call love through it's infatuation, it's feeling. That's not love. Love is doing, it's giving, it's action. For God so loved the world that he gave. For God so loved the world that he gave. That's how we are to love our wives. We are to give, not dominate, but give. And in doing so, in loving her, then she grows in beauty. That's what the sanctifying her, cleansing her by the washing of the word. We don't dominate. We don't make them come under us. That's wrong. And he says love. Love is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And in case you've forgotten what that says, let me read that to you. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. Oops, I went to 12. Okay. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love does not brag. It's not arrogant. It does not act unbecomingly. And when you try to dominate and put your wife under you, and make her bow to you, basically, that is unbecoming. It does not seek its own. In other words, it's not selfish. It is not provoked. It does not take into account a wrong suffered. So both of you put aside your black books that you're holding count of the things they've done wrong to you. It does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. That's the definition of the word love here in Ephesians 5, where it says, husbands, love your wives. Do you see that? Now, women, listen. If you're hearing this and you're saying, oh gosh, I need to tell my husband this. No, you don't. Don't. You can maybe suggest, hey, Neal had a good message. You need to listen to it. But don't you dare tell him this is what he's got to do. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, there are two fears that each of us have. Okay? And women, listen to this. Here's fear number one in a man: being ruled by a woman. That's a fear that a man has. And so whenever you try to jump in and tell him what he's not doing right, you're jumping on two of his fears. And the first one is, he takes that no matter how you meant it. It doesn't matter. It has the appearance of you're trying to rule over him, and it won't work. It won't work. That's one of the fears that a man has, being ruled by a woman. The second fear is this: being found inadequate. And ladies, you're the main one that can either make or break your husband by how you speak to him. If you tell him he's no good, he does nothing right, you maybe throw in an affectionate word every now and then, but in most cases you're putting him down, then you are jumping all over that fear that's built into him, and you are wrong. Don't try to rule over him. Don't try to make him do things. Don't say, you need to hear this. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. Now, men, your wife has two fears. And you need to understand this, because you're the one that satisfies and brings the fears down. Here's the two. A woman has a fear of not being loved. And you're the only one that can help that can alleviate that fear. You have got to tell her constantly how beautiful she is, how much you love her. You can't be like the man that says, woman, I told you when I married you I loved you, and if I change my mind, I'll let you know. That doesn't work. Guys, in other words, you have got to romance her for the rest of y'all's married life. It's got to be built into you guys. You've got to learn and work at it and do it. Listen, if you have fallen out of love with your wife, if the feelings are gone, it's going to be mainly because you're not doing things for her. You're not telling her how beautiful she is. You're not saying, honey, I love you. I love you more now than I did when I first married you. Guys, we've got to say these things and mean it. I don't mean just say it, but we've got to say it and mean it. Listen, we sometimes, through our work and everything else that happens, fall out of love. There's no passion. There's no feeling there. The way you get around that is by praying and saying, God, give me new eyes for my wife. And by going ahead and doing things whether you feel it or not. Women are responders, and they respond to your affection and your love. If you don't, there will come along somebody that will give her affection, and she'll fall for him. So men, it's up to you. If I can say this, if your marriage falls apart because you're not showing her affection and love, it's your fault. And you better start taking responsibility for it. What we need to do, men, is say, Father, forgive me. Give me an affection for my wife. Open my eyes that I may see her as you see her and love her. And you've got to pray that until it happens. Listen, it will. I had a man one time that was in that position, and he prayed for about 6 months saying, Father, give me love for my wife. Give me a new set of eyes for her, and he did. And it changed their life. So her not having the fear of not being loved, man, is totally on you. And the second is too, and that is this. She has a fear of security, of being insecure, of living in a home where you don't care about money or how things go, and you're not watching out for your family. You're the only one that can satisfy that fear and give her that security. So you see, these two fears are based on the fact that the other can satisfy those fears, either badly, by making it worse, or by quelling them. Women, you need to let God handle him. Remember my definition of submission. You bowing over so God can smack him. Get out of the way. Don't tell him he's wrong. Don't try and say, hey, you need to do this. Hey, let's go do this. Hey, you're failing at this. That handles the other one of inadequacy. A man has a thought of being found inadequate. And ladies, you can satisfy both those by building him up, edifying him, and letting God handle the relationship. All right, I got to take another break. This is our last one. So let's take this break, and I'll be right back.